I want to tell you a story. It begins in 2007. I'm a 33-year-old brand manager working for Nokia in London. At this point, Nokia is the biggest mobile phone company on the planet. And it's about to release its new MP3 phones. And I walk into my boss's office and I say, I've got this brilliant idea. You know how Coca Cola owns Christmas? Slide change, please. Do you know how Coca Cola owns Christmas? How over the decades they built up this ownership of this moment in the holiday season. What if Nokia could own New Year's Eve? Think about it. It's the one time on the planet when everybody's connecting with each other. What's Nokia's brand promise? Connecting people. I've got this idea to do the world's biggest New Year's Eve party. 5 cities, 1 party, over 24 hours on New Year's Eve. And he looked at me like I was crazy. I said, I think this could be super cool. Let me go away and come back with an idea to pitch to you guys. And so 3 months later, I was standing in front of the executive board of Nokia, pitching them an idea for $30 million. $30 million for one night to throw a series of 5 consecutive parties across the planet. And these weren't small parties, by the way. This is 1 million people on Ipanema Beach. This is 1 million people in Berlin at the Brandenburg Gate. And this is with some of the biggest music superstars on the planet. The Black Eyed Peas, Rihanna, John Legend. And I'm standing there, I'm this punk kid standing in front of the board of Nokia, and to my eternal amazement, they say yes. They give me $30 million. That's the good news. The bad news is instead of giving me 18 months to plan this thing like I asked for, they said I had to do it in 6. That was the day I started chain smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I called up the only person on the planet who'd ever actually done this. He's a guy called Sir Harvey Goldsmith. Some of you may know him. He did the Live Aid and Live 8 concerts. So I call up Harvey, and we now spend the next 6 months, the most stressful 6 months of my life I've ever had, planning this thing. It's like a giant 3-dimensional puzzle. We're trying to book artists in the right sequence, in the right order. By the way, this is a global satellite broadcast to 140 countries. This was streamed live on the internet. And so it's the most complicated thing I've ever done in my life. So fast forward to 3 days out from New Year's Eve. We're so close. We've had teams of people working around the clock. And I'm in Berlin, where we've decided to set up the Global Command Center, which is basically like just an office with the words Global Command Center taped on a door. And I get a call, and this time, this first call is from the team in Hong Kong, and the call goes something like this. Hey, Af, we've had a sea quake that's knocked out the internet cables to Hong Kong. So Hong Kong has no internet, and I know you're planning to broadcast this thing, but unless we can pay for some satellite airtime, your show isn't going to be seen by anybody. Okay, let's get some satellite airtime. Let's make it happen. 2 days out, I get a call. This time it's from the team in Rio de Janeiro. The call goes like this. Hey, Af, we're sitting in the mayor's office of Rio, and riots have broken out of the city of Rio, and there's a bunch of prisoners who escaped, and basically they're setting buses on fire in the streets. And the Black Eyed Peas would like an armored car escort to get to the beach. Can we have some money to pay for an armored car? What the fuck am I doing? Yes, fine, let's get an armored car escort. It is the day before New Year's Eve, and I'm now sitting in this fancy restaurant in Berlin with a bunch of sponsors. And my phone is in my pocket, and it starts to blow up with text messages from the German team. And there's nothing quite like Germans panicking, right? It's quite special. And the first text message is, please call us. The second is, please call us now. And the third message is my all-time favorite, just block caps. Danger is here. At which point I go, excuse me, I'm just going to take this phone call. And I go, what the hell is going on? Af, you're not going to believe it, but for the first time in 100 years, Berlin is being hit by a hurricane. We have 100-mile-an-hour winds, and we have to de-rig everything down this 1-mile stretch in front of the Brandenburg Gate so people don't get hit by sheets of flying equipment, and put it up again tomorrow in time for the show. Can we have some money to pay for, the rest? Yes, absolutely, let's make it happen. And I put the phone down and I go, God, you have sent me seaquakes. You have sent me riots. You have sent me hurricanes. Are you trying to tell me something? Are you trying to tell me that this was a terrible idea? And so we've managed to fix all of these problems, and the next night, I'm sitting in this control room watching this bank of TVs as the show starts to unfold. And it starts in Hong Kong in the east, goes to Berlin, goes to Mumbai, Berlin, Rio, and New York. And this is actually a picture of, this is what 1 million people on Ipanema Beach look like. I'm sitting there watching this going, what just happened? And my favorite moment actually is John Legend was playing at that concert, and he comes out on stage, and it's just him and a piano, and he sings one of my favorite songs, Ordinary People, and the whole crowd sings along. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty amazing. We did it. I go to sleep that night. I'm so exhausted. I haven't slept in months. I think I slept like 15 hours, and I wake up the next morning in this hotel room in Berlin. And I'm looking back at this roller coaster of 6 months. And I'm going, we did it. We bought it in on time. Nobody died. Nobody had any problems. It was on budget. It was on time. And I looked inside myself, and I should have been feeling joy, right? Or exhilaration or something like that. But do you want to know what I felt when I looked inside? I felt nothing. I didn't feel anything. In fact, as the weeks and months went past, I started to think, did I just blow $30 million of money on my ego as a marketer? I look at where Nokia is today. It's no longer the biggest mobile phone brand in the world. It's barely even an ingredient brand in Microsoft at this stage. And I think about how I could have spent that money differently. Could I have spent it in a way that helped Nokia future-proof itself? Could I have spent it in a way that actually had some societal impact as well? That was part of the journey that brought me here to speak to you today. This quest to find a more meaningful way of practicing our craft of marketing as well. Years passed, and I tried to push this empty feeling away by working even harder. I reached for the next promotion, reached for a bigger paycheck, and then after several years, I became a father to this guy. This is my son, Nuri. He is sporting a rather amazing case of bedhead here. And one day I was going out the door on a business trip, and he said something to me. He said, "See you next week, Dada." And the way he said it, in such a matter-of-fact way, it kind of broke my heart. Like he'd gotten used to me going away for so long that it meant nothing to him. And a week was a rather long time in his life. "See you next week, Dada." And I thought about it on this trip. And when I got home, I felt so guilty. I did what all guilty dads do. I took him to the park so we could just have some father-son time. Now, given that this park was February in New York City, this may have been a terrible idea. The park was bitterly cold. There was like black garbage bags just floating around in the wind. And there's nobody at the park, and Nuri is so bored, he's just pushing his own stroller around the perimeter of the park. Like, it's not good parenting skills. Anyway, we're sitting there on this park bench, and I turned to him and go, "Hey, I'm really sorry I had to go away for so long. I really missed you." And he said, "That's okay, Dada. I missed you. I know your work is important." And then we sat there in silence for a moment, and then he turned to me and said, "So what do you do?" And in that moment, that emptiness came back. My throat was frozen, like the park around us. I couldn't get any words to come out of my mouth. And I realized I didn't have a good answer for him. I realized I didn't know how to tell that little boy that I'd missed a week of his life just so I could help people buy more stuff. I felt guilt. I felt shame. I wanted to cry, but I didn't want him to see me cry. And so all I could do in that moment was just give him a big hug. But inside me, I vowed that something had to change. A few weeks later, I'm hanging out with my friend Jeff Benjamin. Now, Jeff is one of the most awarded creative directors in advertising, so I thought he could help me figure some of this stuff out. And we get to Jeff's place, and he's watching this movie, Deep Impact. Do you guys know this movie? It is one of those cheesy 90s movies where Morgan Freeman is the president of the United States, and it's about this giant asteroid hitting the Earth. And Jeff and I are sitting there watching this movie, and there's a scene where they put the best minds of a generation into this mountain shelter, right? And they're putting in doctors and engineers and scientists and teachers to protect them from the effects of the asteroid. And Jeff turns to me and says, "Hey, Af, you know who they're not putting in that mountain?" Marketers. I thought to myself, he's right. And I imagined myself like going through the crowds and going up to the top of the mountain and seeing the guy with the clipboard standing there checking people off. Name? Afdhel Aziz. Profession? Marketing. Why should you be in this mountain? I throw really good parties. I think the secret is we all want to do work that gets us into the mountain. So I decided to go and try and find some people who did that. The next day, I was at work. I cleared my schedule. I was sitting in this little phone booth, wondering where to start. And so I did what all self-respecting marketers do. I went on Google. And the first question I asked myself was, am I alone? Am I the only person who thinks that what they do is fundamentally not as meaningful as it should be? And I found this survey from Gallup. Gallup did a poll of 140 countries, and they asked people to say, are you happy and engaged at work? And I want you guys to shout out what percentage you think said yes. Loud, I can't hear you guys. 20? 45? 12? Anything higher than 45? 15%. 15% of people said, yes, I'm fulfilled and engaged at work. That's 85% of people who said, no, I'm not. All right, now it's time for some audience participation. In a second, if you feel like you're part of the 85%, I want you to stand up. I'm just kidding, I wouldn't do that to you. This guy over here was freaking out, by the way. Like, 85% did not like what they do. Gallup called it a shocking waste of talent, and I agree. So I asked myself a second question. What do those 15% of people have in common? And here's the answer I found. These three things. So this is from Dan Pink, an amazing book called Drive, The Science of What Motivates Us. It's these three things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So I'm going to talk about each of these in turn. Autonomy is the ability to do self-directed work, to be independent, to not have anybody micromanage you. And I thought, oh, I had a lot of autonomy at Nokia. I had $30 million worth of autonomy at Nokia. I kind of understood that one. Mastery. Mastery is being expert in your craft, feeling pride that you're good at what you do. And I thought, okay, I was able to bring this pretty complex program in on budget, on time. I think I had some mastery in what I did. And in this word, purpose. Purpose was the one that caught me by surprise. Maybe that's what was missing. I started researching this word, purpose, and I found it's common to every culture on the planet. The Japanese call it ikigai. The French call it raison d'être. It really means your reason for being. Why are you on this planet, and what are you going to do with the time you have on it? Maybe this is what was missing. And so what I love about speaking is that after I speak, people come up to me, and sometimes it's the beginning of a whole new journey. So I spoke in Brooklyn at a small co-working space, and Dawn comes up to me and says, hey, I drove all the way from New Jersey to come and hear you guys speak. And I work at this place called Consumer Reports, and I want you guys to come and speak at Consumer Reports. Now, for those of you who don't know, Consumer Reports is 100 years old, and it's an organization that has been dedicated to fighting for consumer rights. For example, they were one of the first to stand up against smoking, believe it or not. This is the cover of Consumer Reports, I think in 1963, battling the tobacco companies. They were the first to advocate for seatbelts in cars and force major auto manufacturers to put seatbelts in cars. Today, they're battling, today they're mostly known for giving consumer ratings. So if you want to know what car to buy or what mortgage to get, they're the ones who review everything and help protect people. And they're also battling things like how to protect your privacy, how to stand up against superbugs. They're really an amazing organization that for 100 years has been battling for you as a consumer against companies that want to take advantage of you. And so we go into Consumer Reports. We have this amazing day talking to the employees of Consumer Reports. And at one point, we're sitting around a table with about 25 employees. We asked them, what's your purpose? And how does it ladder up to what you're doing in the Consumer Reports? And the hair stood up on the back of my neck because every single person around that room said that their purpose was to protect people. Their purpose was to keep people safe from harm. And it was completely in line with the purpose of Consumer Reports, which is to create a fairer, better world. I'll let them tell you in their own words.
We all want to make the right choices.
Everyday ones, like buying our groceries.
Or bigger ones, like getting that first apartment.
Starting a family.
Deciding when to retire.
But when it comes to information and advice,
it's hard to know who to trust.
It makes you wonder,
who's got my back?
That's exactly why we, Consumer Reports, are here.
We're a nonprofit ready to stand up to those with something to sell, but who refuse to tell.
To those who readily compromise our health, wealth, and safety.
We're all consumers, but we're people first.
We're all entitled to know the facts about what we buy,
what we eat,
what we drive,
and even more, to have our voices heard.
Because our only agenda is getting to the truth.
So together we can champion equality and fairness for all.
We
are Consumer Reports.
And we believe in smarter choices for a better world.
I love that. Smarter choices for a better world. And this story stuck in my head, and I used to tell it to everybody. Why was this organization different? And I went back and I interviewed Dawn, and she said, you know what unites us? Is that we're all there to help other people. We're not doing it ourselves. She said, our job is to be a voice for the voiceless. And that's when another part of the puzzle fell into place. Because purpose is never about yourself. Purpose is always about being of service to something bigger than yourself as well. So I ask you today, who can you be of service to? That could be to each other, to the people in your organization, the teams that you work with, to your colleagues in other countries. It could be to your hosts. It could be to your guests. And it could be to the wider world at large and society in general as well. So by now I feel like I'm getting somewhere. I have different pieces of the puzzle, but I'm still lost. I can't see the forest for the trees, to use that metaphor. What joins all this stuff together? And I speak to my friend Bobby and my co-author of the book, and he said, you have to go talk to this guy called True Pettigrew. Now, True is somebody I knew from my days in advertising. He ran a major agency in New York, but he'd quit And now he was living in North Carolina, helping people find their purpose. And I tell him this problem, and I say, True, all these people out there are lost, but there doesn't seem to be a path to help them get to where they're going. And he said, Af, that's true of so many people around the world. And what I found out is that when you're lost, what you need is a GPS. Just like a GPS can help you navigate back to where you need to get to, you need a GPS. And I said, okay, what does that mean? He said, well, the G stands for what are your gifts, the P stands for what are your passions, and the S stands for who you can be of service to. And that's when it all clicked. That's when I realized the answers had been there right in front of my nose. When I look back at the people I talked to, Alyssa had a gift of being able to lead a small group of people passionately through all the obstacles they faced. Her passion was changing the perceptions of the brand, and she was of service to the people of City of New York. Kelly had a gift of being able to frame the problem, frame the solution, not the problem. And he was passionate about the issue of ending slavery, and he had found purpose and meaning in creating this freedom tool. And Dawn was passionate about the work she was doing at Consumer Reports, helping people create a fairer, better world. And she had found purpose, which is why she's been there for 30 years, and she says she's still proud to drive into the car park every morning. Here's another way to look at it. What if purpose is at the intersection of what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you are most passionate about? I think I found a clue there. But there was still one more problem that I needed to fix. I still felt like there was something missing inside of me. And so I went and I did a lot of work with True to really understand myself. And man, it was hard. It's the most amount of soul searching I've ever done in my life. And it took months and months and months to look inside myself and ask myself what my purpose was. Do you want to know what the answer is? It's to be here with you today. It's to be here with you today. That's why I got on a plane and flew thousands of miles to be with you guys on a rainy Friday morning in Amsterdam. I realized that I had a gift of storytelling, that I wanted to share stories of people who inspired me. I realized I was passionate about helping people like me who were inside jobs that they couldn't find meaning in. And I realized that I wanted to be of service to folks like you today who may be on their own journey as well. This is my purpose, to be here with you today. So I ask each of you to think about these three things. What are your gifts? What are your passions? To whom can you be of service? Because I'll tell you right now, we have a gift in this moment. This moment right now is like any other time in human history. We are in a situation where your customers, your consumers, your employees, and your investors all want to find ways to help companies do more good. We are in an era where your values drive your value. We need your hearts as well as your brains. This is how we succeed today. I mentioned Justin wrote this amazing book, A Selfish Plan to Save the World. Here's a great quote in this. Half the world has a poverty of means. They don't have things, food, shelter, education. The other half is a poverty of meaning, in that we have all of those things, but there's still something missing. I believe that corporations like Booking.com are the place where you can solve both of those problems at the same time. So I'm going to leave you with the quote that drives my life, which I hope you'll like as much as I love. It's from Mark Twain.
The two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. I hope today gets you one step closer to unbordering yourself. I hope today gets you one step closer to doing work that gets you into the mountain. And I hope today gets you one step closer the day you find out why. How will you start today? Thank you.